In Colombia, at least one minor lost his life in the municipality of Bosconia after the heavy floods that affected the department of Cesar. In Haiti, the Pan American Health Organization reported an increase of more than 120 confirmed cases and almost 40 deaths due to cholera in the country. And in Somalia, 9 people were killed and 47 wounded after a terrorist attack in the port city of Kismayo. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. And now we begin with the news. In Colombia, a minor drowned after being swept away by a disastrous rainfall in Bosconia, Cesar, where the consequences have put their inhabitants on the streets without any belongings. The rain was so heavy that in matters of 5 minutes, the water entered thousands of houses and several vehicles were swept away by the current. The community has reported the disappearance of at least 3 adults, but this information has not been confirmed by the authorities. According to preliminary reports, the underage fatal victim died from drowning after being swept away by the flood. The victim is a 7-year-old boy belonging to the Yukpa indigenous people, which was the area most affected by the emergency. Ecuador's National Service of Risk Management and Emergencies issued a yellow alert due to recent activity of the Cotopaxi volcano. The Geophysical Institute of the National Polytechnic School reported the volcanic activity, consisting of gases and ash spewing. The preventive measures includes updating action plans at all levels of government according to the evolution of the situation. After Cotopaxi launched a column of ashes with 500 meters high above the crater level, after 7 years of inactivity, tourism activities in the area have been cancelled. On Sunday, thousands of people gathered in Brussels for a Walk for Your Future, a climate march ahead of the COP27 UN Climate Change Conference next month.
And as young people, real action from the different governments for the planet, because it is our future that they are sabotaging and crushing because they want to make profit and they don't see it in long term. They only see the money they can make in the short term. What we want is real measures which begin to constrain the companies that do the most damage to the planet and that we save our future.
And I think people need to realize, especially the politics also, that we are already in a major crisis, and this crisis is as serious or more serious than all the things we faced before in our lifetimes or anybody before us. So that's what the message should be today.
The market town of Kuzeri in the far north province of Cameroon, close to the border with Chad, has been struggling with major floods for a week. 2 regional rivers have their confluence there, the Longon and the Chari, and both are seeing exceptionally high water levels that are projected to rise further. Sandbags were being used in an attempt to contain the rivers, but for many parts of Kuzeri, it was already too late. Homes in the town have been flooded and people were seen walking through knee-high muddy water, carrying possessions to try and save them from the floods. Families have been left homeless and have built temporary shelters from sticks and sheets on dry, higher ground. The Logon and Chari rivers separate Cameroon from neighboring Chad, which declared a state of emergency this week to help tackle the crisis.
I'm in a serious trouble. My house is flooded. The family has nearly all left. Things have been removed to a safe place in town. The town of Kousiri and the district of the same name has been confronted for a little over a week by the flooding of the Logon and Chari rivers.
And now we move on to other topics. Just over a week before the second round of the elections to define who will be the next president of Brazil, Luis Inácio Lula da Silva met with supporters in Ribeirão dos Neves, Belo Horizonte, the metropolitan area. Lula toured the streets among a crowd riding on the back of a truck with Senator Simón Tebet, one of his opponents in the first round of the elections, and federal deputy Marina Silva. After the tour, the former president of Brazil said that in case of winning the elections on next October 30th, he will set up a more representative government of Brazilian society in which there will be a larger participation of women, blacks, and indigenous people. Also, the candidate said on Saturday that the next presidential elections are to choose between barbarism and democracy. Meanwhile, the current president and candidate for the re-election, Jair Bolsonaro, chose the outskirts of Sao Paulo to be present during these Saturdays. Bolsonaro visited the town of Guarulhos together with his former minister and now candidate for governor of Sao Paulo, Tarcísio de Freitas. Bolsonaro has been campaigning in Brazil's largest city since Thursday, hoping to narrow the over 650,000 vote gap between him and Lula in Brazil's most populous state. The conservative leader criticized during the day the most recent decision of the highest electoral tribunal that prohibited some media from naming Lula as a thief, unconvicted, or head of a criminal organization. We'll take a short break now, but first, remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Haiti, the Pan American Health Organization reported an increase of over 120 confirmed cases and almost 40 deaths caused by cholera in the country. PAHO confirms that the number of cholera infections has increased to 127 and reported 37 deaths in various regions of the country. Also informed that in the penitentiary center of Port-au-Prince, they have identified 271 suspected cases, 12 confirmed cases, and 14 fatalities due to the disease. In this respect, they stated that insecurity, the lack of fuel, supplies, and food have caused a worsening of health situation in the country. And the systematic violence continues in Colombia. On Sunday, authorities registered the assassinations of 2 new social leaders in the last 48 hours. According to the Institute for Development and Peace Studies, on Saturday, armed men assassinated Sócrates Sevillano and his wife in the municipality of Orito, department of Putumayo. Sevillano was a recognized social leader who served as president of the Community Action Board of the Mirador Pepino and the San Carlos neighborhoods. Another act of violence occurred on October 21st in Agua Viva, in the department of Arauca, where the body of Giraldo Alonso Rios, who was the current vice president of the Community Action Board of Vereda La Primavera, was found with gunshot wounds. According to data from INDEPAS, 148 social leaders and human rights defenders have been murdered throughout the country so far this year. In Argentina, President Alberto Fernandez announced changes in his cabinet. On Sunday, the president detailed that the current Minister of Territorial Development and Habitat, Jorge Ferraresi, will leave his position as of next November 1st. He also announced that his replacement will be the current Secretary of Housing and former Mayor of Navarro, Santiago Maggiore. In this sense, the president thanked Ferraresi deeply and sincerely, who took office in November 2020, for his work and assured that the values of his political commitment in such a difficult time. In the United States, conservative groups of the Republican Party are promoting a campaign to delay the voting during this November 8th. A group of Red Party activists who maintained without evidence that there was fraud in the previous presidential elections are calling on their followers to wait until the last minute to cast their ballots during the upcoming midterm elections. The exhortation is to vote in person during the last minutes of polling stations' operations, and in the case of mail-in ballots, to wait until the last minute to cast their ballots. The argument behind the campaign is that in this way they will be able to prevent an alleged plan of the Democrat Party to commit electoral fraud. On Sunday, crews aboard humanitarian rescue ships rescued 38 people from a small fiberglass boat adrift in the Mediterranean. According to the operators of the mission, several children and one woman were among those rescued by teams aboard the SOS Mediterranean-operated Ocean Viking vessel. The rescue ship now has 73 migrants on board. Nearly 300 migrants disembarked in the southern Italian port of Taranto on Saturday after the rescue at sea in 5 different operations by the crew of a humanitarian vessel operated by Doctors Without Borders. About half of the 293 rescued passengers on the GO Barents were unaccompanied minors. In a separate operation early Saturday, the Ocean Viking saved about 35 migrants, including 3 children in international waters off Malta. Now we move on to other topics. Russia's Ministry of Defense denounced one more time that Ukraine continues to fire at areas surrounding the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, threatening to create a man-made nuclear disaster.
The Kiev regime continues provocations in order to create a threat of a man-made disaster at the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. During the day, the artillery of the armed forces of Ukraine fired more than 30 artillery shells on the eastern outskirts of the city of Energodar and the territory adjacent to the nuclear power plant. The strikes were carried out from the Ukrainian-controlled areas of the settlements of Nikopol and Chernorovyoska in the Dnipropetrovsk region. The enemy's firepower was suppressed by return fire from Russian artillery units.
In Russia, Deputy Prime Minister Denis Manturov considered it possible to extend the operation of the International Space Station until 2028. The senior official advocates the extension of operations based on the assessment of the Russian segment of the facility and explained the possible extension of its lifetime is subject to the consideration of the governments and national space agencies involved in the project. The U.S. agency, NASA, also declared in 2021 that the ISS can operate until 2030 and that at time called on participating partners, including Russia, to maintain their cooperation. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Somalia, 9 people were killed and 47 injured after a terrorist attack in the port city of Kismayo. A car bomb was detonated in the vicinity of the Tawakal Hotel, which is frequented by local politicians and business people. The attack was claimed by the Al-Shabaab terrorist group. The country's security forces reported that all the terrorists involved in the attack were killed during the security operation in the area. In Iran, the Army Ground Force has launched a 3-day large-scale military drill involving combat forces in a border area in the country's western Azerbaijan province. The 3-day exercise, coordinating battalion role model, began Saturday in the Pazveh district in Pirshanar County to assess the combat power of the forces and show off their military capabilities. The forces are expected to conduct heli-borne parachute operations, night raids, helicopter combat, road control, high-altitude capture, and offensive destruction and urban warfare during the drill, involving various units drawn from the Army's infantry, armor, artillery, Army aviation, drone, engineering, airborne, and electronic warfare divisions. In Lebanon, the World Health Organization delivered a second batch of aid to address the cholera outbreak in the country. The representative of the organization in Lebanon, Abdinazir Abubakar, stressed that delivering the kits with medicines and supplies will reinforce the management and treatments of patients. WHO reiterated its commitment to improve coordination and emergency readiness. Lebanon has 227 people infected and 7 dead in the outbreak, spread to at least 29 communities. Abubakar insisted that cholera is easily preventable if people have access to clean water, adequate hygiene facilities, and accurate information. And members of the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the Communist Party of China met with press and foreign press on Sunday, October 23rd, on the day Xi Jinping assumed the leadership of the party's top executive body for the 3rd consecutive time. During a press conference at the Great People's Palace in Beijing, Chinese President and Communist Party General Secretary Xi Jinping presented the 4 new members of the Politburo Standing Committee, a body that constitutes the top leadership of the formation. In addition to Xi and Zhao Leji and Wang Hunin, who remain on the body, the new members are Li Qian, Kai Qi, Ding Zuezian, and Li Zi. In this speech, Xi Jinping insisted on the message that China needs the development of the world, just as the world depends on the growth of the Asian giant's economy.
China cannot develop without the world, and the world also needs China for its development. After more than 40 years of unflagging efforts toward reform and opening up, we have created 2 miracles: rapid economic development and long-term social stability. The Chinese economy has great resilience, potential, and latitude. Its strong fundamentals will not change, and it will remain on the positive trajectory over the long run. China will open its doors ever wider. We will be steadfast in deepening reform and opening up and on pursuing high-quality development.
And the North Indian city of Ayodhya retained its Guinness World Record by lighting over 1.5 million oil lamps and keeping them burning for 45 minutes as part of the celebration of Diwali, the Hindu festival of lights. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi witnessed the impressive spectacle, and thousands of visitors thronged the banks of the Saryu River this Saturday, where the lamps were lit. A fireworks and light show then illuminated the city's streets and riverbanks. Thousands of city residents also lit lamps in their homes and temples. The festival symbolizes the triumph of good over evil, marking the return of the Hindu god Rama to home after 14 years of exile, defeating the mythological demon Ravana and rescuing his abducted wife Sita. Compared to last year, the city lit 600,000 more lamps to retain the record. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.